The Industry Alliance Office represents Amsterdam Neuroscience. And we are here to help our industry partners in their drug development for CNS indications. So for all diseases related to the human brain.
For all indications, we have basic scientists working on fundamental and translational research from bench to bedside. Close to 1,000 researchers across 26 teams collaborate together here at Amsterdam Neuroscience.
Amsterdam Neuroscience is the translational neuroscience institute in the Netherlands. And here we combine clinical expertise on all major disease indications in neurology and psychiatry. And we have large longitudinal patient cohorts that form the basis for much of the translational and clinical research we do.
So all in all, we are uniquely equipped to bring novel therapies all the way from preclinical development to clinical validation, all here in Amsterdam.
As you can see in this overview, at Amsterdam Neuroscience we work on many CNS indications and study the brain with different technology platforms. In this video, we will take you across our campus in Amsterdam to highlight some of our excellent neuroscience research. Our researchers work with groundbreaking cell imaging techniques, using neurons derived from human pluripotent stem cells.
By culturing these neurons in the lab, we can interrogate them, we can ask the question how well do they communicate and what is wrong in the patient neurons. And we do this with electrophysiology and with live cell imaging approaches, where we can look at network communication. And of course we can study compounds and genetic therapies to identify new therapies for brain disorders.
Imaging techniques are also being used to research the disease multiple sclerosis, for example by studying human brain tissue and cellular models.
We start off with human postmortem tissue to really understand what goes wrong in the brain of an MS patient. And then we translate that back to human in vitro model systems, where we can study how inflammation occurs at the blood-brain barrier, how immune cells traffic across the blood-brain barrier, and also find ways to sort of restore blood-brain barrier function. And we have a lot of assays operational for that, so we can screen drugs in a high content setting to see whether the blood-brain barrier function improves and inflammation subsides.
The Amsterdam Leukodystrophy Center is a long-term pioneer in the field of genetic white matter disorders, involved in identification of these diseases by their MRI pattern.
For us, MRI pattern recognition, that's what we call it, is still a central technique, and I would say every leukodystrophy expert around the world uses it, so we still publish a lot about MRI pattern recognition. And of course, in those many years that I've been working on leukodystrophies, the field has evolved a lot. And that means that we now have therapies to offer and therapeutic trials are starting. And we also use the MRI techniques now to assess how much better the brain white matter gets. And in numbers, there are quantitative MRI techniques that you can use to monitor the white matter and to also convince other people, for instance, the FDA or the EMA, that this medicine is really working because look at all the numbers, they really get a lot better.
The Imaging Center uses MRI techniques and molecular imaging to study the human brain, including the distribution and effect of drugs within the central nervous system.
For brain diseases, there are several types of drugs. There can be small molecules, but more and more it are biologicals, and especially antibodies. And that's because antibodies are very specific for the disease. However, the challenge of these big molecules, these big biologicals, is to enter the brain. But now we have this imaging technology, and we can also develop methods, procedures to facilitate entrance of these drugs in the brain. So we think that really, new fields of research and application will arise.
The Amsterdam UMC has a leading role in translational research in the field of neurological infections and inflammation, for example in the treatment of meningitis.
We introduced a new treatment, which we took from the lab to the patients, to implementation research. And that's the use of an anti-inflammatory drug. So when you have a brain infection, so meningitis, bacterial meningitis, lots of the damage is not by the bacterium, but by the host itself. And we found out that you have to treat that inflammatory response with an anti-inflammatory drug. which is now used all over the world and is saving lives every day.
Our neurochemistry lab researches blood and CSF biomarkers for early diagnosis and prognosis of neurodegenerative diseases, as well as evaluating treatment effects in clinical trials.
We participate in several types of projects. For example, to develop a novel biomarker test, we can provide samples and we can also provide expertise. We can perform validation studies, whether a test is technically feasible or not, and whether there is a change in the patients compared to the controls, for example. Later on, we can employ the biomarkers in inclusion, so at the start of a trial, and we can also apply the biomarkers as endpoint markers. And for that, we have a whole library of different biomarkers that we can employ.
The Alzheimer's Center has extensive experience in the design and data analysis of clinical trials in neurodegenerative diseases and runs many clinical trials together with our partner, the Brain Research Center.
For the industry partners, it's a difficult field to find the treatment in neurodegenerative disorders, the science, but also the logistic problems. And we can offer both. We have the science in every aspect, from preclinical, from clinic till drug development further on. And we have the logistics, because we are at one desk that covers it all. We can manage everything from there. So I think it's very easy for industry partners to just have one stop, and then we can make it happen from phase 1 to phase 3.
At the back office, we are very much involved in turning your project into a success. This starts with a dedicated, fast, pragmatic and efficient contracting process. We are tightly connected to the business developers and the principal investigators, which results in short turnarounds.
In our custom-made management system, we can easily keep track of the information and data to optimize our collaboration with you. We also complement the principal investigators by assisting in generating reports.
We work closely with our business developers in the budgeting phase. Any administrative and financial question will be addressed quickly, since we are in direct contact with our research and financial departments in the Amsterdam UMC.